Welcome to HFY Stories. If you're ready for jaw-dropping stories and a universe full of excitement, hit that subscribe button like it's the big red button in a space opera. Give us a like if you're feeling that interstellar vibe and comment below to join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Yes, you, the spacefarer with a great story idea or just a fan of epic human victories. The First Contact. The Galactic Council was a gathering of the most powerful and ancient races in the galaxy. It was an entity that had seen the rise and fall of empires, the birth of stars, and the death of worlds. Its members were beings of immense wisdom, and its decisions shaped the course of the galaxy. For eons, they had maintained a fragile peace, balancing power and diplomacy among the many species that inhabited the stars. But now, a new player had emerged on the galactic stage, a species that defied all expectations. The humans. When the Council first received reports of a new race venturing beyond their star system, they were dismissive. The humans, as they called themselves, were considered insignificant, primitive even. Their technology was rudimentary, their ships small and unremarkable. To the Council, the humans were little more than an oddity, a minor blip in the grand scheme of things. But then, something changed. The humans had begun expanding at an unprecedented rate, establishing colonies on distant worlds, and their technology seemed to advance at a speed that defied logic. The Council watched with growing concern as the humans pushed the boundaries of known space, encountering, and in many cases, overwhelming other species that stood in their way. The Council had never seen such aggression, such relentless determination from a species so young. In response, the Council summoned a special session, an emergency meeting to discuss the human threat. Representatives from the most powerful races in the galaxy gathered in the Grand Chamber, a massive hall carved into the heart of a dead star. The air was thick with tension as the counselors took their seats, their expressions grave. High Counselor Xorvax, a towering being of living crystal, spoke first. His voice resonated through the chamber, vibrating through the very walls. "We are faced with a new threat, one that we have underestimated. The humans are not the primitive species we believed them to be. They are expanding rapidly, and their technology is advancing at an alarming rate. We must decide how to address this threat before it is too late." Counselor Lithara, a graceful, ethereal being with translucent wings, nodded in agreement. The humans have already annexed several systems that were under the protection of lesser races. They show no regard for diplomacy, no respect for the established order. If we do not act, they will destabilize the entire galaxy. But what can we do? Asked Counselor Vrex, a reptilian being with eyes that glowed like molten gold. The humans are unpredictable. They fight with a tenacity we have never encountered before. They seem to have no fear of death, no concept of surrender. We cannot simply engage them in open conflict. It could lead to a war that none of us are prepared for. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The counselors were powerful, but they were also cautious. They had seen the devastation that war could bring, and they were loath to ignite a conflict that could engulf the entire galaxy. High Counselor Xorvax raised a hand, silencing the room. "We must understand them before we can decide how to deal with them. We need information, intelligence. We must know what drives them, what their weaknesses are. Only then can we formulate a plan." "And how do you propose we gather this intelligence?" asked Counselor Lithara. "The humans are secretive. They do not allow outsiders into their territory, and their ships are heavily guarded." "There is one way," Sorvax replied. "We must send an emissary. Someone they will trust, someone who can infiltrate their ranks and learn their secrets. We need a volunteer." The chamber fell silent. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. To volunteer for such a mission was to invite danger, perhaps even death. But they all knew that it was necessary. "I will go." The voice that spoke was soft, but it carried a weight that silenced the entire room. All eyes turned to Counselor Vrex, who had risen from his seat. His golden eyes gleamed with determination. "I have studied the humans extensively," Vrex continued. "I understand their language, their customs. If anyone can infiltrate their ranks, it is I. I will go, and I will bring back the information we need." The counselors hesitated, but they knew there was no better candidate. Rex was one of the most skilled diplomats in the council, and his knowledge of the humans was unparalleled. "Very well," Thorvax said at last. "Counselor Vrex, you will be our emissary. You will go to the humans and learn all that you can. But be warned, this mission is dangerous. The humans are not to be underestimated." Rex nodded solemnly. "I understand, but I am prepared. I will leave at once." As Rex departed the chamber, the counselors watched him go with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The fate of the galaxy might very well rest on his shoulders. Little did they know that the journey he was about to undertake would change everything they thought they knew about the humans. And it would begin with a fleet unlike any they had ever seen. The arrival of the fleet. Rex's journey to human space was long and arduous. He traveled in a stealth ship, one that was cloaked in the most advanced camouflage technology the Council had at its disposal. Even so, he knew that if the humans detected him, his mission would be over before it began. The humans were known for their paranoia, and any unknown vessel would be met with extreme force. After weeks of travel, Vrex finally reached the edge of human territory. The star systems here were heavily guarded, with patrol ships constantly scanning for any signs of intruders. Rex activated the stealth systems and carefully navigated his ship through the outer defenses. His heart pounded in his chest as he slipped past the human sentinels, knowing that one mistake could mean his death. At last he reached his destination, a massive space station that served as a central hub for the human fleet. The station was a marvel of engineering, with sleek, angular designs that contrasted sharply with the more organic aesthetics of the Council's ships. It was a testament to the humans' industrial prowess, their ability to create and innovate at a pace that few other species could match. Rex docked his ship in one of the station's hangars and disembarked, his disguise firmly in place. He had taken on the appearance of a human, using advanced holographic technology to blend in with the crowd. As he stepped onto the station, he was immediately struck by the atmosphere. The air was thick with tension, a sense of urgency that permeated every corner. The station was bustling with activity, with humans of all shapes and sizes moving with purpose. They wore uniforms of various colors, each signifying their rank and role within the fleet. Rex noted the discipline in their movements, the way they carried themselves with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. As he made his way through the station, Rex couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The humans were different from any other species he had encountered. There was a fire in their eyes, a determination that was almost palpable. They were a people on the brink of something great or something terrible. Rex's first task was to gather information on the human fleet. He needed to understand their capabilities, their strengths, and their weaknesses. To do this, he would have to infiltrate their command structure, gain access to their most closely guarded secrets. It didn't take long for Rex to find an opportunity. The humans were preparing for a major operation, and the station was abuzz with talk of a fleet assembly. Rex managed to ingratiate himself with a group of lower-ranking officers, posing as a recently transferred technician. His knowledge of human technology allowed him to blend in seamlessly, and soon he was able to gain access to the station's command center. What he saw there left him breathless. The human fleet was massive, far larger than anything the Council had anticipated. Hundreds of warships, each more advanced than the last, were being assembled in orbit around the station. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering. The humans were preparing for something big, something that could potentially change the balance of power in the galaxy. Rex managed to gain access to a terminal and began downloading data on the fleet. His heart raced as he sifted through the information, piecing together the humans' plans. They were preparing for a full-scale invasion, a massive offensive that would take them deep into uncharted space. But it wasn't just the size of the fleet that concerned Rex. It was the technology. The humans had developed weapons and shields that were far beyond anything the Council had ever seen. Their ships were equipped with advanced AI systems, allowing them to operate with a level of precision and efficiency that was almost inhuman. Rex realized that the Council had been wrong to dismiss the humans. They were not just a minor threat. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species that could potentially challenge the entire galaxy. As Rex continued to gather data, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He had been careful to maintain his disguise, but he knew that the humans were not to be underestimated. If they discovered his true identity, his mission would be over. His fears were confirmed when he felt a presence behind him. He turned slowly, his heart pounding, and found himself face to face with a human officer, a woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. She was tall and imposing, with an air of authority that was unmistakable. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice cold and commanding. Rex hesitated, his mind racing. He had been careful, but somehow this human had seen through his disguise. He knew that his next words could determine his fate. "I'm new here," he stammered, trying to maintain his cover. "Just transferred from another station." The woman narrowed her eyes, clearly not convinced. "You're not on the roster. Identify yourself now." Rex knew that he was cornered. His only chance was to make a run for it, but he doubted he would get far. The humans were quick, and their security systems were state-of-the-art. But before he could make a move, the woman did something unexpected. She reached out and touched his arm, her expression softening for just a moment. "Come with me," she said, her tone softer now. "We need to talk." Rex had no choice but to follow her, his mind racing with questions. Who was this woman, and what did she want with him? Was she going to turn him in, or did she have another agenda? As they walked through the station, Rex couldn't help but feel a strange connection to her. There was something in her eyes, something that he couldn't quite place. It was as if she knew more about him than she was letting on. Whatever the case, Rex knew that he was in deeper than he had ever intended. The humans were far more dangerous than he had ever imagined, and now he was caught in a web of intrigue that threatened to unravel everything. And he still had no idea what the humans were truly capable of. Unveiling the secrets. The woman led Rex through a series of corridors, each one more secure than the last. As they walked, Rex couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had come to infiltrate the humans, to learn their secrets, and bring them back to the Council. But now it seemed that the tables had turned. He was no longer the hunter, but the prey. Finally, they arrived at a small, dimly lit room. The woman motioned for Rex to enter, and he did so with a sense of trepidation. The room was sparsely furnished, with only a table and 2 chairs in the center. The walls were lined with screens displaying various data feeds, all of them related to the human fleet. "Sit," the woman ordered, and Rex complied. She took the seat opposite him, her piercing blue eyes never leaving his face. "Who are you?" she asked again, her tone more measured this time. Rex hesitated. He had been trained for situations like this, but nothing could have prepared him for the intensity of this moment. He knew that the woman was expecting a lie, something to explain his presence on the station. But he also knew that any falsehood he spun would likely be detected. The humans were too clever, too perceptive. "My name is Rex," he said at last, deciding that a partial truth might be his best option. "I'm a diplomat sent here to observe and report back to my people." The woman's expression remained unreadable. "And who are your people?" Rex paused, weighing his options. Revealing his true identity could be dangerous, but lying outright could be even more perilous. Finally, he decided to take a calculated risk. "I am a member of the Galactic Council," he admitted. "We have been watching your species for some time now. We are concerned about your rapid expansion, your aggressive tactics." The woman leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing. "So you're a spy." Rex bristled at the accusation. "I am a diplomat," he corrected. "My mission is to gather information, not to engage in subterfuge." The woman raised an eyebrow. "And yet, here you are, infiltrating our station, stealing our data." Rex felt a surge of frustration. "You misunderstand. We have no intention of provoking a conflict. We simply wish to understand you, to learn what drives you. The Council is concerned about the potential for war. We want to avoid it if possible." The woman studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she sighed and leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You're not the first to come here with that intention," she said. "Others have tried, and they've all failed. Do you know why?" Rex shook his head, his curiosity piqued. "Because they underestimated us," she continued. "They thought they could understand us by observing from a distance, by analyzing our technology and our tactics. But they missed the most important part, the human spirit." Rex frowned, not quite understanding. "The human spirit?" The woman nodded. "Yes, it's what drives us, what makes us who we are. It's the reason we fight, the reason we push forward even when the odds are stacked against us. You can't quantify it, you can't measure it. It's something you have to experience." Rex felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories of the humans' tenacity, their refusal to give up even in the face of overwhelming adversity. But he had never truly understood it, until now. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. The woman smiled, a small sad smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Because I believe you're different from the others. You're not here to destroy us, or to exploit us. You're here to learn. And maybe, just maybe, you'll take what you learned back to your people and help them understand us too." Rex was taken aback by her words. He had expected hostility, suspicion, even violence. But this woman was offering him something unexpected, trust. "I don't know if I can do that," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Council, they won't listen. They're too set in their ways, too afraid of change." The woman's expression softened. "Then show them. Show them what we're capable of. Show them the strength of the human spirit." Rex stared at her, his mind racing. Could it really be that simple? Could understanding and mutual respect prevent the war that seemed inevitable? Before he could respond, the woman stood up and walked to the door. She paused and turned back to him, her blue eyes locking onto his. "There's one more thing you need to see," she said. "Follow me." Rex hesitated for only a moment before rising to his feet and following her out of the room. They walked in silence through the station, passing countless humans who paid them no mind. Rex's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and doubt. He had come here to spy on the humans, to learn their secrets, and bring them back to the Council. But now he found himself questioning everything he had been taught. At last, they reached a large observation deck. The woman led Rex to the edge, where a massive window offered a breathtaking view of the human fleet. Ships of every size and shape filled the void, their sleek hulls gleaming in the starlight. But it wasn't the size of the fleet that took Rex's breath away. It was the sense of purpose that radiated from it. Every ship, every crew member, every single piece of technology was focused on a single goal. The humans were preparing for something monumental, something that would change the course of history. "So this is a human fleet," Rex whispered, awe creeping into his voice. The woman nodded, her eyes fixed on the ships outside. "Yes, and it's more than just metal and circuits. It's a testament to what we are capable of, to the strength of our will." Rex felt a deep sense of respect for these humans, these beings who had defied the odds and carved out a place for themselves in a galaxy that had tried to dismiss them. He realized now that the Council had been wrong, terribly wrong. The humans were not a threat to be feared, but a force to be reckoned with. And perhaps, just perhaps, they were the key to a future that didn't involve war and destruction. But there was still one question that gnawed at the back of his mind. "What are you preparing for?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman turned to him, her expression serious. "We're preparing for the inevitable. We know that there are those who see us as a threat, who would rather destroy us than try to understand us. We're preparing to defend ourselves, to protect our home and our way of life." Rex nodded slowly, understanding dawning on him. The humans were not aggressors, they were survivors. They had been pushed to the brink, and now they were ready to push back. As Rex gazed out at the fleet, he knew that he had a choice to make. He could return to the Council and report what he had learned, or he could stay and learn more, to truly understand the human spirit that this woman had spoken of. It was a decision that would shape the future of the galaxy. The decision, Rex spent the next several days aboard the human station, immersing himself in their culture and way of life. The woman, who introduced herself as Captain Alina Rains, became his guide, showing him the inner workings of the fleet, introducing him to her crew, and explaining the intricacies of human society. As he learned more about the humans, Rex found himself growing more and more impressed. They were a resilient and resourceful species, capable of incredible feats of ingenuity and bravery. Their technology, while advanced, was not what made them truly formidable. It was their spirit, their unwavering determination to survive and thrive, no matter the odds. But it wasn't just their strength that captivated Rex. It was their compassion, their willingness to help those in need, even when it came at great personal risk. He saw this time and time again, whether it was a crew member going out of their way to assist a fellow soldier or an officer making a tough decision to protect civilians. Rex also found himself drawn to Alina. There was something about her that he couldn't quite explain, a connection that went beyond mere professional respect. She was strong and confident, yet there was a softness to her, a kindness that shone through in her every action. He admired her deeply, and as the days passed, that admiration began to grow into something more. But Rex knew that his time on the station was limited. Eventually, he would have to return to the Council and report his findings. And when that time came, he would have to make a choice, whether to tell the Council the truth or to lie and protect the humans. The thought of betraying Alina and her people weighed heavily on his mind. He had come to see them as more than just potential enemies. They were allies, perhaps even friends. And the idea of returning to the Council with information that could lead to their destruction filled him with dread. One evening, as Rex and Alina stood together on the observation deck, watching the stars, he finally voiced his concerns. "I don't know what to do," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "If I go back to the council, they'll use what I've learned to justify a preemptive strike. But if I don't, they'll see it as a betrayal." Alina turned to him, her expression soft. "You have to do what you think is right, Rex. I can't tell you what that is. But I can tell you that we're not looking for a fight. We just want to live in peace." Rex nodded, but the decision still weighed heavily on him. He knew that the council was not as open-minded as Alina. They would see the human fleet as a threat, no matter what he said. But as he looked into Alina's eyes, he realized that his feelings for her had grown too strong to ignore. He couldn't betray her, not after everything they had shared. He had to find another way. That night, Rex made his decision. He would return to the council, but he would not tell them the full truth. Instead, he would use what he had learned to argue for peace, to convince them that the humans were not their enemies. It was a risky plan, and Rex knew that it might not work. But he had to try. For Alina, for the humans, and for the future of the galaxy. When the time came for Rex to leave, Alina walked him to the docking bay. There was a heaviness in the air, a sense of finality that neither of them could ignore. "Are you sure about this?" Alina asked, her voice laced with concern. Rex nodded, though his heart ached at the thought of leaving her. "I have to do this. It's the only way to prevent a war." Alina smiled sadly. "I know. Just be careful." Rex reached out and took her hand, a gesture that was both comforting and bittersweet. "I will. And thank you, Alina, for everything." With that, Rex boarded his ship and set a course for the council. As he left the human station behind, he couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that he would never forget Alina or the lessons he had learned from her. When Rex arrived at the council, he was met with suspicion and hostility. The counselors were eager to hear what he had learned, and they pressed him for details about the human fleet. But Rex held back, carefully choosing his words. He emphasized the humans' desire for peace, their willingness to negotiate, and their strength of character. He painted them as a species that, while formidable, was not interested in conquest or domination. To his surprise, some of the counselors seemed to be swayed by his words. They began to see the humans not as a threat, but as potential allies in a galaxy that was growing increasingly dangerous. But not everyone was convinced. There were those who still saw the humans as a menace, a force that needed to be contained. And Rex knew that his work was far from over. In the days and weeks that followed, Rex continued to advocate for peace, using every tool at his disposal to sway the council's opinion. It was a long and difficult battle, but he refused to give up. And slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. More and more counselors began to see the humans in a new light, and the calls for war grew quieter. In the end, Rex's efforts paid off. The council agreed to open diplomatic channels with the humans, to explore the possibility of an alliance rather than a conflict. When Rex received the news, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had done it. He had prevented a war and secured a future for both his people and the humans. But there was still one thing left to do. Rex returned to the human station, his heart pounding with anticipation. When he arrived, he was greeted by Alina, who seemed surprised but pleased to see him. "You're back," she said, a smile spreading across her face. Rex nodded, unable to keep the grin off his own face. "I'm back, and I have good news. The council has agreed to negotiate. There won't be a war." Alina's smile widened, and she reached out to take his hand. "That's amazing, Rex. You did it." Rex squeezed her hand, feeling a warmth spread through him. "We did it." As they stood there, hand in hand, Rex knew that his journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome, and battles to be fought. But he also knew that he wouldn't be facing them alone. He had found something special in Alina, something worth fighting for. And together, they would build a future where humans and aliens could live in peace, side by side. And perhaps one day, the rest of the galaxy would come to understand the strength of the human spirit, just as he had. The end.